What's up? So I am going to do a little bit of shooting today. A little bit of shooting. And today we're gonna go with the Icarus. Right there. I got some super light bands on here. I think these are like 0.4, some cheap exercise latex. All of my frames come with the lanyard hole. When you buy them from my Etsy shop, they'll all have a lanyard on them. That's optional, but it's a safety thing. When you're drawing back, if that frame slips out of your hand, it's going to come back and hit you in the face, and you don't want any part of that. So we're just going to have some fun. Clay is like a cool kind of ammo because it explodes when you shoot something. It it hits it and it just like blows up. So instead of like damaging things or whatever, the clay here, I'll show you right here. It just like explodes against the wall and it's a bunch of pieces now. But it's fun ammo, and especially for beginners, because if you get a frame hit and you just like bought a new frame, and a steel ball is going to dent this stuff, but in a lot of frames it might break it, and you don't want to ruin your new frame. So when you start, you can use a clay, and the clay will hit it and explode. Now it is hard enough to sometimes make a little bit of a dent, but the damage is going to be much less severe. I'm going to set up some cans and shoot some cans, do some fun knockdown type stuff. So shooting cans is excellent practice because they're loud and reactive. So if you've ever seen a how to shoot a slingshot video, one of the ways that you're going to shoot is sideways. They call that gangster. And you're going to shoot like that. But you're going to aim down the bands so that the bands create a straight line underneath your eye. And then when you shoot, you're going to put typically the fork tip, but on this frame, because the tips are canted, you're going to put like the middle of the frame the middle of the tip on the target. So it's like halfway between through the fork and an over the top. The only bad part about these clay ammos is that at any more than about 10 yards, they start to curve because they're sometimes not perfectly round. We'll hit it eventually, guys, I promise. Clays would probably hurt still if you shot yourself with it, so I still wouldn't try to like shoot people with it. The wind is a better slingshot shooter than I am. Oh well. That's sometimes where shooting the steel cans is a better idea because they're heavier. Ooh, I hit that one and it didn't fall over. I hit it again and it didn't fall over. There we go. Heck yeah. Let's do it again. Take a little bit of time when you're shooting too, to make sure that there's nothing behind the target that if you shoot it, you're gonna be upset that you hit it. These clay balls won't do any damage to my trampoline. The clay balls are biodegradable too. So once they sort of explode or they get lost in the grass or whatever, once it rains, they fall apart and it's just clay. So it's okay for the environment. Let's do it again. I set up some steel cans instead of the aluminum ones. We'll see if they hold up a little bit better to the wind. All right. Set them up again. Yeah, straight through. Ran them all. Let's go. One thing you got to do, you put your lanyard on. When you're holding it, you want to grip this slingshot with a brace grip. So you're going to put your finger up like that and your thumb like that. And then when you shoot, you want your fork to be not perpendicular to the ground. So you don't want this kind of thing going on or this kind of thing going on. It's a very common mistake to like shoot like that or shoot like this. But you want to keep them as perpendicular to the ground as possible. And then you want your bands to make a straight line up and down underneath your eye. So that when you're aiming, you really only see one band. Sometimes I like to cant my fork tips a little bit like this. And you'll get a feel for how that works the more that you shoot. But in the beginning especially, you definitely want to keep a line with your like a nice straight line with your bands. One thing that I like about the Icarus too is that because of the way that the handle is shaped, if you have large hands like I do, I wear an XL glove and that actually sometimes is a little bit small, you want to put your hands over the top when you brace grip it like that, and there will be plenty of extra out here. But if you have smaller hands, you can just flip it over, you put the bands on the other side, and then you can grip it like that. Now that kind of digs into my hand a little bit. I don't like that so much. I like much better like that. It's much more comfortable. Just make sure that the bands are tied on the side that faces the target. You always want the bands to come around the slingshot. You don't want to pull on the bands like this. That's not good. They'll come out of there. You want the bands to come around like this, so that it's coming over and around the slingshot. So if you flip it like that and you shoot it like that, just tie the bands on the other side. It's not that big of a deal. Of course, you don't have to shoot from the distance that I'm shooting at either, which is roughly about 10 or 11 yards. Or I'm sorry, 10 or 11 meters here. I think my line here is about 10 meters. So if I take a big step back, this is where I've been shooting from. But you can make it easier for yourself and start with 5 meters. 5 meters is roughly 15 feet. Just make it easy. And then as you progress and you get better and you're getting consistent, then you can start stepping backwards a little bit at a time. The clay ammo, though, it doesn't fly straight for more than about 10 or 15 yards at the most. 10 or 15 meters at the most. It will curve off if you're shooting at further distances than that. Always practice getting to that same spot too. Same draw, same release pattern. You want to be constantly thinking about shooting the same way every time. Okay? because that's how you're going to get consistency. Got a twofer. I did it again. And then I hit it and it doesn't fall over. And I miss, of course. Gotta show what happens for every situation. There it is. So some other things you probably want to know as a beginner. The slingshot itself doesn't do much. You hold it, it holds the bands, and that's about it. You're going to find that some are shaped in the way that you like. Some have tips at length that you like. Some have wide enough tips that you like. Some have a pit how you like, or whatever the case is. But the frame is all about how it feels for the shooter. It has nothing to do with the actual flight of the projectile. I mean, very, very little, actually. The bands have much more to do with the flight of the projectile, and the projectile has a lot to do with that as well. You want to match your bands to your projectile. If you're shooting small ammo, you need light bands. Period, point blank. There's no reason to shoot heavy bands with light ammo. All it does is add way too much power into the system, and what that's going to do is shorten the band life, and if you're shooting over the top, it's going to come forward and hit you on the hand, and it's going to lead to some painful hand slap. You don't want that. If you're shooting heavy ammo, then you need heavier bands, you need stronger bands. But in the beginning, you want to go with light ammo. Clay is perfect because it's going to do the least amount of damage to everything that you're shooting, including your hands and the frame. Because sometimes people hit their hand with the ball and it's not fun. It's happened to me before. It's never been too serious, but it sucks. And clay ammo is going to mitigate some of that because it's a little bit easier on the target or whatever it's hitting. It's just more forgiving. The other thing is you want to start with light bands so that you can just practice getting that draw and the release down. Once you've pulled the bands back about 100 or 150 times, your grip is going to start to go, and if you're using heavy bands, it's going to go even faster than that. If you're using a light band set, you can sit there and shoot for hours and shoot hundreds of shots, and it's not going to put that much wear on the gripping muscles in your fingers. You got to keep in mind, like, the slingshot's a toy, but at the same time, it can be really, really dangerous. So in the beginning, you should go with safety first. It's probably a good idea to wear safety glasses too. I do have some. I never wear them. That's a risk that I take, that I put on myself. In the beginning, you should consider wearing safety glasses. One of the reasons that clay ammo is good for beginners too, because you don't have to worry about setting up a catch box. These are so cheap. I think for $20 you get like 3,000 of them or something. They're so cheap, and they're biodegradable. So when they're in your yard, as soon as it rains, these just crumble and fall apart. So you'll never have to worry about picking them up out of the yard or anything. But don't think for a second that clay ammo can't be dangerous. I do have a friend that killed a rabbit with one. He had better bands than this, but still, they're capable of taking game. I would not recommend hunting with them, however, because more often than not, if you hit an animal, it's not going to do any kind of damage. You have to be a very, very good shot in order to do any kind of damage with these, but it is possible. It's nice and loud. Oof, that one arced so hard. It's probably a oval, more of an oval ball. I hit it and it did not fall. And then it slips out of my fingers. There we go. Okay, so reason number 7,890,210 that the Icarus is a good beginner frame is because it's wide enough to make a good beginner frame. So, you know, you have a lot less chance of hitting the fork. You can also attach tubes to this pretty easily. You just put a tab on there, or what you can do is take a pouch and you cut the pouch right down the middle this way, like that. And then you tie the tube to the pouch, and then you would tie the pouch to the fork. You could also just do the wrap and tuck with the tube on there if you wanted to as well. And then you can make yourself a speed shooter, you can make yourself a tab shooter. I mean, it really does everything. I could do this for hours, man. I've already been on here for like an hour. I don't know if you can pick, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but occasionally these will break on contact, and then there's pieces that I can hear landing in the grass. It's pretty funny. Ooh! Sir. Oh, right in between them. I couldn't do that if I tried. Bing! I hit the very bottom of that can. I love it, man. I just love slingshots in general, if you can't tell. Yeah, if you have any other questions, just put them in the comments. I'm pretty good about answering comments, so I want to help as many people as I can get good. I shouldn't say get good, but get a lot better at slingshots a lot more quickly. I think that as a beginner, one of the things that got me going into slingshots was seeing all the YouTube videos that are out there and seeing what these guys were doing and kind of learning how to shoot better quickly. So how to get better quickly. And I think that with a little bit of practice with with one frame for a few days or a couple of weeks, you'd be hitting cans like, maybe not like this, but pretty close to this in a really short period of time. I mean, honestly, just get yourself some light bands and some clay ammo and just practice the consistency. You know, pull, anchor, make sure that your forks are perpendicular to the ground. Anchor in the same spot every time. Just get that release, the draw and release down so that you are doing the same thing every time and you'll get good quick. I mean, just a lot of fun to shoot slingshots. There's a link in the description for the clay ammo, and a link in the description where you can buy my slingshots. Go get some.